Hello and welcome. This is We Talk Football. We're back with another video, and today we're going to look to focus on the Champions League. So, a few days ago, just about a day ago, we had the Champions League draw, and it's a new format, of course, with 36 teams instead of 32. We've had 32 teams for quite a long time now, but starting this year, we're going to have 36 teams in the Champions League group stages, which is very interesting. So that means each team will play 2 extra games in the group stages. Last season it was 6 games in the Champions League group stages for each team, but now it's going to be 8. But anyway, before we get into that, this is what today's video is going to be about. Please make sure to like our pages on Instagram and Facebook. On Instagram, it's at We Talk Football 24. It's the same handle on YouTube as well, at We Talk Football 24, and on Facebook as well, We Talk Football. So let's get into our video today. We're going to be looking at the Champions League draw. We're going to be looking at the new format, trying to make sense of what it's going to be like, looking at the teams involved. Who do we think are going to be the favorites? Who are going to be maybe the underdogs, maybe causing a little bit of a surprise. But yeah, that's what this video will be about. So let's get into it. So as I said, we've just had the Champions League draw. We have something like 4 pots, or four different seedings. Now in pot 1 you have Madrid, Manchester City, Bayern, Paris, PSG, Liverpool, Inter, Borussia Dortmund, RB Leipzig, and Barcelona. And then and then in is this? Let me see. Part 2. Part 2 has Bayer Leverkusen, Atletico Madrid, Atalanta, Juventus, Benfica, Arsenal, Club Brugge, Shakhtar Donetsk, and AC Milan. And then part 3 has Feyenoord, Sporting Lisbon, PSV, Dynamo Zagreb, Salzburg, Lille. I've never seen this team before. Crvena Zvezda. I am sorry, but I've never heard of that team before. I've never seen that team before. But they're in part 2. Young boys, you have Celtic as well. And then, that was part 3. Sorry, that was part 3. And the final part, we have another team. Oh my gosh. Okay, Bratislava. You have Monaco, Sparta Prague. You have Aston Villa, Bologna, Girona, Stuttgart, Sturm Graz, and Brest. So those are the 4 pods, and those are all the teams, all 36 teams. It looks very interesting. I'm not going to shoot down this new format until it gets going. I'm really interested. It looks very interesting as well. That you'll play each of the opponents that you'll play. You'll only get to play them once. You have 4 away games and 4 home games. So that's very interesting. I think it creates a lot of competition. I think for competitive teams, if you play a team once, you want to make the most of it, and you want to win as many games as you can. I think also there's a little bit of an incentive to, win as many games as you can so that you finish in the top 8. So let me explain this. The group stages are like this, right? As I said earlier, 4 different pots. You only get to play one opponent once. Your opponent once, basically. There are 2 extra games than the previous a Champions League format. So you had 36 teams before. You had 32 teams before, and in one group you'd have 4 teams. You'd play one opponent twice, at home and away. But now it's a little bit different. We have 36 teams. You get to play 4 home games and 4 away games. Now you can't play the same opponent twice. I've said this many times already anyway. And how it's going to work is it's like some sort of a league where all teams play, of course, all teams play 8 games in the group stages. But the 8 teams with the most points at the end of the group stages qualify for the last 16 automatically, right? So there's a benefit to that, because that means you get a little more rest and you probably get a favorable draw in the last 16. So if you finish in the top 8, your opponent in the last 16 will probably be a weaker team, because they'd have to get through into the last 16 by playing a qualifier or like some sort of knockout game where they have to qualify for the last 16, right? That's one benefit to that. You probably get a weaker opponent in the last 16, and also you get a bit more rest. So if you qualify for the last 16, or you finish in the top 8, you play one less game, which means you get a bit more rest. While if you finish from position 9 to 24, those teams have to play, as I said, a qualifier for the last 16. And teams that finish 25th from 25th to 36th, they're out of the Champions League. So I think that's the benefit to finishing top 8. You want to finish top 8 to get yourself some rest, to get a weaker opponent in the last 16, and making your route to the last 8 at least a little easier. Now, of course, there's no easy game, right? There's no easy game in the Champions League, and there are so many really, really good teams in the Champions League this year. Not all the teams will qualify to be in the last. It will qualify into the top 8 automatically, into the last 16, right? So, with that being said, you will find some big hitters, some big boys, not qualifying through by finishing top 8. So they'll probably have to play the qualifiers, and then it's not a guarantee that you'll play a weaker team if you finish top 8. It's a better chance, of course, than finishing from 9 to 24, where you'll definitely play a tough team if you don't make it into the top 8 and you play a top 8 team. That's for sure. But so talking about that, let's look into my predictions for teams that I think will finish in the top 8, right? So let's start with part 1, where you have the big boys. So I think from part 1, I think you have 2 teams that are definitely going to be in the top 8, Madrid and Manchester City. So I think that leaves already 6 spots to be filled in for the top 8. So when I looked at it, I thought Bayern were going to make it into the top 8. I think Liverpool will be in the top 8. I think Inter Milan will be in the top 8. So that's 5 teams already that I think will be in the top 8. I think Barcelona will be in the top 8. So that's 6 teams. And then from the other 3 pots, I think you'll only have 2 teams making it into the top 8, who I think will be Bayer Leverkusen and Arsenal. So those are the opponents that I think will make it into the top 8. But as I said before, if you make it into the top 8, doesn't mean you'll have a weaker team to play in the last 16, right? So these are some of the teams that might have to play or go through a playoff to go into the last 16, right? Some big boys, Atletico Madrid. I almost said Atletico Madrid would make it into the top 8 because of the experience of Diego Simeone and some of the recruitment that they've done, adding Julian Alvarez and Conor Gallagher into their team this season. Those are really good signings. They will rejuvenate Atletico Madrid. As an Arsenal fan, I would have loved to have signed Julian Alvarez myself. I think he's a great player, he's a great, striker, something that we needed. And you also have Juventus, who have Thiago Motta as their new coach, the new wave of young managers coming through. He's also one to look out for, Thiago Motta. He's made some changes. Juventus have also signed some really good players as well, like Douglas Luiz, into their team, something that they really needed. But they also have European pedigree. They are a big team, Juventus, and I think they'll do really well. So those are some of the teams that could be in, the playoff picture for the last 16. You also have Atalanta, who won the Europa League last season. They'll probably want to look to build on from that. You have really good teams as well. Girona had a great season last season in Spain in La Liga. Of course, they didn't win the La Liga title, but they really pushed on, especially early on in the season. It's hard to compete with Real Madrid anyway. So you do have some opponents, even if you qualify for the last 8, for the top 8, the top 8 teams, you do have some really tough opponents coming your way from the playoff rounds in the last 16, right? So I think that's my predictions for the last 8 for the in the Champions League. And then moving forward, who do I think will win the Champions League? That's a tough one to call. It's, I think right now, the 2 best teams, and they have been the 2 best teams in Europe for quite a while now, Real Madrid and Manchester City. They've been trading blows each season. They've met in the Champions League quite a lot now. I think they met twice in the semis. They met last season in the last 8. It would be really interesting to see them in the final of the Champions League now, because we've seen them in the knockout stages, right? Before the final. But it would be really great to see them in the final. Depends who you think have the better squad. Also, I forgot to mention PSG. I don't think PSG are going to make it into the top 8. That's another opponent that you might want to avoid. Maybe. As an Arsenal fan, if I had to play PSG, I wouldn't be too fussed. We are actually going to play PSG, but in the group stages. I think we should win that game. They've lost Kylian Mbappe. They've lost all his goals, his talent. They don't have Neymar anymore. They don't have Lionel Messi. So those are some of the opponents that you have to look out for. But going back to who I think will win the Champions League, I think Manchester City will probably win the Champions League this season. I don't think they have a better squad than Real Madrid right now. I think as a squad of players, Real Madrid have the better players, but they have more work to do in terms of gelling their players. From the games that I've seen so far this season, Kylian Mbappe hasn't really gone into stride. He's played 2 La Liga games, 3 actually La Liga games so far this season, but he hasn't scored a goal yet. He's had some opportunities to score, especially in the previous game. I can't remember their opponents before Las Palmas, which they drew 1-1, but he had some opportunities to score. He didn't take those chances. He struggled. But also you have some new players coming in at Real Madrid, like Arda Güler. Arda Güler was there at Real Madrid last season, but he was loaned out. Now you're seeing Endrick as well at Real Madrid. You're also seeing players like Brahim Diaz making more of an impact, playing a bit more. So those are some of the things that you have to look out for at Real Madrid. How are they going to gel, especially on the offensive side? How are they going to gel Vinicius Jr., Brahim Diaz, Endrick, Kylian Mbappe, Rodrigo, all these players up front? How are they going to gel? I think that's going to be a little bit of a headache for Carlo Ancelotti. It's already looking like it's not very cohesive, while Manchester City know exactly the holes they need to fill out. And they have, I think, Savinho looks like a brilliant player out wide. Very skillful, very fast. I think he's going to be great at Manchester City with the system that they have. Jeremy Doku, I think, might have a better season than he did last season. Erling Haaland has already started scoring goals, banging in hat-tricks. He scored 4 goals in the Premier League already. That looks ominous. He looks machine-like again. And I think he's going to have a top season. But yeah, I think... and I say this again, right? I think Real Madrid have a slightly better squad of players. But it's not too far from Manchester City. I think Manchester City have the better striker, the better number 9. They have a better midfield than Real Madrid, I think. I do believe they have a better starting 11. I do believe Man City have a better starting 11, even on defense. They have better defenders, I think, than Real Madrid. And I think they definitely have a better coach. Pep is a better manager than Carlo Ancelotti. As great as Carlo Ancelotti is, I think Pep is the greatest manager of all time. So, taking all that into account, and that Manchester City have had a few seasons playing together, the core group of players that you think of: Bernardo Silva, Rodri, Kevin De Bruyne, Erling Haaland, Ruben Diaz, all them boys, Stones, Kyle Walker. They have a good core of winners, and they've been playing together for a while Real Madrid have to gel a few players in this season. And I think Real Madrid will be a little bit under pressure to kind of make Kylian Mbappe the guy, bring him into play a lot more. So that might disturb the flow and how they played last season. And I think even last season, Real Madrid were not the best team when they played Manchester City. I think Man City were the better team. So we'll see how that goes. I forgot to mention they have to fit in Jude Bellingham as well into the system. So that's something very interesting to look out for. But I think there are so many good teams around. Inter Milan is a great team that has to be looked at. I'm not saying they win the Champions League, but I think they'll go far this season. Bayern, I think they'll have a better season. Maybe finish in the semi-final again. Who knows? But yeah, thank you. Let me know what you think about my predictions. Make sure to remember to subscribe. Remember to look out for more content. The season is back. We'll be looking to post more games again, more content, more videos. Hopefully you'll enjoy them. Remember to like our videos. Remember to follow us on Instagram at WeTalkFootball24 and on YouTube as well. And remember to look out for us on Facebook at WeTalkFootball. But other than that, another weekend of football. We're looking out for the Premier League and how it's going to shape out. But thank you very much, everybody. Hope to see you soon again. Take care. Ciao.